Welcome to Andy Ari On3. Happy Friday. Best day of the week. Your questions will be correctly. I can't promise that. Ari, yours might be correct. I don't know if mine will be correct.
We'll do our best. All that matters is that we had fun.
Exactly. Speaking of fun, we should have results by this. We're recording a little bit early. JD, Piquel, and I are locked in heated combat in the Caleb Jenneret college football personality bracket. Caleb is, I don't know who Caleb is. He's a big college football fan. And he created this 24-person college football personality bracket. And Ari, JD, and I are all in it. And Ari, who have you beaten so far, Ari?
I didn't have to go through Herb Street. I beat Joel Klatt.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that I'm
and then you beat Desmond Howard, right?
Buying all that, but we'll take it, because Joel Klatt's really, really good and Desmond Howard's on game day, but
the people are voting. I beat Matt Leinart and Kirk Herbstreit, and now I'm matched against JD Piquel. I believe the poll will be done by the time this video goes live. The poll will be done. I just hope everybody had fun. I don't blame you if you vote for the good-looking Ivy Leaguer. I do the same thing.
3-on-3ers in the top 8, though. I'll take it.
Hell yeah! It's sort of like the SEC in basketball.
And Josh Pate's still alive, I think, and he's
Kublik too.
So that's 50% of the top 8 personalities in college football on earth are
exactly
working for or affiliated with On3 in some way.
And also, we love Cole Kublik, and he comes on whenever we ask. So he's honorary as well. So I vote. I don't care who you vote for, me or JD. Just vote. And then when Ari, who do you have next? Because you don't have Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer got beat.
Urban Meyer I got to go look at the bracket here. So vamp for a second. I don't remember who I'm playing right now.
Well, here's the thing: if Ari wins, then it's me against Ari in the final 4.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Beat JD, or it's JD against Ari. It's one of the two of us against Ari.
Yeah, I think I'm facing Danny Canal.
Oh man, I was on Danny's show on Thursday morning.
Yeah. So I like my matchup here. No, I beat Danny Canal in the second round, I think.
Okay, so the third round, because your side of the bracket has Pate, your side of the bracket has Brandon Walker.
I've got Greg.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
But
okay.
You know what? I was just happy to be in the bracket because, the thing that is interesting about it isn't necessarily who wins because votes can get skewed and all that. It's that the person who made the bracket came up with 24 people, and he thought that I should be one of the 24. And that, to me, meant the most. So we'll see what happens. I would love to face you and knock you out. That would be fun. But
yeah, well, we will face one another. If I beat JD and you beat Greg McElroy, it's you versus me in the final 4 to get to the title, which is probably going to be Pate or Kublik or Brandon Walker. So
good collection of people. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to figure out how I would attack any of those guys. Obviously, Cole and Brandon have their very clear team allegiances. So, if I had to go against Cole, I would try to engage the Alabama fans to beat the Auburn guy. If it's Brandon Walker, I would try to engage the Ole Miss fans to beat the Mississippi State guy.
I'm just going to, if I ever get matched up with Pate, I'm just going to ask him publicly if he even lifts weights.
I'm ready because you may have to talk trash to Josh Pate next week in the finals.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
We'll
have to do a crossover event with the shows.
Yeah. Who loses?
I see no downside. All right. We have incredible questions this week. And the first one, Ari, reminded me that we haven't done this show this year. So I think this particular episode can serve as this show. And by this show, I mean what are the new rules for this year? Because last year I had to do an entire episode. It was before you started it on 3. I did an entire hour on here's everything that's different about college football this season. It's going to be crazy because it was the 12-team playoff. It was the new, Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, all the new members in the Big Ten, the new Big 12 alignment, the new ACC alignment. It's not like that this year, but there are different rules slightly than last year. And we have to delve into the biggest change. So this is one for Chad. Brett McMurphy has Notre Dame as his number 1 seed, but I thought we might still be under the rules where the Irish are not allowed to bye. Via Condios from Chad. All right, Chad, great question, because I do think in the world of college football, which is hard to explain to people who don't pay attention to college football minute by minute, the rules are different now. Yes, Notre Dame can be the number 1 seed, can get a bye, and oh my God, will people complain if Notre Dame is a top 4 seed, Ari?
Yeah, because in the old system, you gave up your right to have a bye week in the playoff, and people viewed that as a trade-off for not having to play into a conference championship game.
Correct.
So now, if they go undefeated, they don't have to play a conference championship game. They play one less game than everybody else, and then, in theory, could achieve that. So, yes, people will complain. I did get a question. I don't know if you got it too, but it was just like, can you explain to me why Notre Dame isn't in a conference? And people are so obsessed with this still. There's historical reasons, and of course there's financial reasons now. But any time Notre Dame will perceive publicly to be gaining a benefit of some sort, and it could be a benefit for them, because one less game is an important benefit for multiple reasons, not exposing yourself to the potential of a loss, and of course the tread and wear and tear on your bodies, and then of course the competitive advantage. So
and so here's how that would work. So let's say Notre Dame, and it doesn't have to just be the number 1 seed. This could be if Notre Dame is a top 4 seed. So if they're 12-0, yeah, they're going to be a top 4 seed. But if they're 11-1, there's a good chance they're also a top 4 seed. So their last game this year is against, I believe, Stanford on Thanksgiving weekend. So yeah, November 29th, they play Stanford at Stanford. That's a Saturday. They wouldn't have to play again until at the earliest December 31st if they were a top 4 seed.
It's funny though, because didn't Dan Lanning complain about how long of a layoff his team had?
He did. So, and they actually didn't have that long of a layoff because Oregon played in the Big Ten championship game last year.
So this would be an extra week on top of the layoff for Notre Dame.
So it's not necessarily a great thing, especially if you end up having to play one of those hottest team in the country teams.
Yeah. There's 2 schools of thought with this, really. It's what's more invaluable? Playing with momentum and, everybody loving everybody, going into a game where it feels like a 90s sports movie montage, or would you rather your team get healthy and fresh? And I guess, the only way whether or not that was beneficial or hurtful is with hindsight. Like, I don't think that Dan Lanning would have been complaining about the layoff had they performed better or won.
Yeah.
But like, what do you look at?
He certainly wasn't complaining about it after they beat Penn State in the Big Ten title game.
I mean, this has been a conversation all the way dating back to the BCS when the Ohio State-Michigan game was happening before Thanksgiving, and that was their final game of the year before the national championship game. That was 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, because Florida, when Ohio State and Michigan played in 2006, it was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So Florida still had to play Florida State. Then they had to play Arkansas in the SEC championship game. And I if you ask me, I'd say that hurt Ohio State more than it hurt Florida.
If you ask me, the fact that Ohio State's offensive tackles got their brains beaten in for 4 quarters probably hurt them a little bit more.
Yes. I
don't really know.
Jarvis Moss and Stephen Harris and Derek Harvey and Joe Cohen.
But I don't know. Like, that's the thing about it. It's like, did the layoff hurt them, or did Florida just come in with a speed and athlete level that they hadn't faced that year and beat the shit out of them? Like, I mean, like, it just, if Ohio
I don't know that Ohio State would have had a chance in that game anyway you shook it, but I wouldn't want to have
do you think Oregon lost to Ohio State this year to throw a bone to Ohio State fans? Did Oregon lose the game this year because they had an extra few weeks of layoff? No, they lost because the better team won. So
wouldn't have mattered. Yeah. If anybody who got put in front of that Ohio State team on that day was going to get their ass beat.
And here's the thing. If you want to get wound up about the competitive advantage of playing one fewer game, I think that that's your prerogative. Like, you're more than welcome to do that. I don't think that Notre Dame or anybody else for that matter will win a national title based solely on the system. You might advance further. I think you can make the case that Penn State advanced further in the system as a result of the way that it played out for them last year. But eventually, your reckoning is going to come. And Penn State made it to the semifinals last year, and they lost on the final drive of the game in the semifinals, and people don't really give a shit, right? Like, people are still, they played a really good team and they lost, and they didn't have to play anybody it's all the same hits that you're hearing about Penn State going into a season in which I actually think they can win the national title. So, like, a lot of this stuff is, always about equitability, right? Like, you want everybody to face the same rules, the same challenges, and the same paths. And unfortunately, in our sport, that's a hard thing to accomplish in many regards, both recruiting and in the actual level of competition.
River just showed the actual playoff from last year with the rules that were in place. Can we see the one that would have been had it been a straight seeding model like now? Okay, so if you remember correctly, Boise State was the third highest ranked conference champ, so they were the 3 seed. Arizona State was the fourth highest ranked conference champ, so they were the 4 seed. Had it been seeded straight, it would have been Oregon number 1, Georgia number 2, Texas number 3, Penn State number 4. Notre Dame would have been number 5. So Notre Dame, instead of getting Indiana at home as the 7 seed, would have gotten Clemson at home, and then would have been fed into a game against Penn State in the next round. And Oregon, meanwhile, the 1 seed that ended up having to play the hottest team in the country, Ohio State, in the Rose Bowl, would have gotten the winner of Indiana, Boise State, and then would have, if they won, would have played the winner of Penn State against the Notre Dame Clemson winner. So,
can I ask something that I've never asked you before?
Yeah.
So if this bracket played out on the bottom half of the bracket, all the matchups that we got before the national title game would happen anyway, organically, right? Like Ohio State,
you got Texas, Ohio State,
Notre Dame, and Penn State.
We don't get Notre Dame, Georgia.
But I'm saying, like, eventually the teams that knocked the teams out would have knocked them out anyway in this bracket on the bottom half.
But I
look at the top half, and the number one beneficiary, in my view of it, would be Oregon would have had to play Notre Dame and won that game, and I don't know if that's a given. Notre Dame was very good last year.
I mean, that would have been in the semifinals. That would have been to get to the championship game.
Let me ask you, this is the question, and I want to ask Oregon fans too. Write in and let us know what you think. If Oregon would have gotten this seeding, and they would have traversed the bracket and beaten the winner of the Indiana Boise game, and then beaten Penn State again after beating them in the Big Ten title game to get to the national championship game. Ohio State was facing them on the other end of the bracket in the title game, and Ohio State beat them the way they beat them in the Orange Bowl on that stage. Would how you felt about last year be any different right now?
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like I would think differently of Oregon had they made a run to the title game, because we would have had a month of them playing well and seeing them beat people.
So Oregon beating Penn State in the regular season doesn't. Wait, I don't even know if they played last year. I'm just trying to think.
They played in the Big Ten championship game.
That's right. Sorry, I got confused for a second.
Yeah.
So seeing them beat the team they already beat a week earlier, like, makes you feel differently about them. They would have had one additional game.
2 additional games. They would have had to beat they would have had to beat the winner of Boise State, Indiana.
One additional win that we didn't see already because we already saw them beat Penn State. Is what I'm saying. They would have had to beat Indiana, Boise, and then do they have to prove themselves again?
They might not have played Penn State. They might have played Notre Dame.
Yeah, I guess in that case it would have felt better. But I feel like the way that it ended, it wasn't when it ended; it was how it ended.
It was kind of just going splat after all of this buildup. And the thing about it was we'd kind of forgotten about them, and we'd kind of forgotten about how great of a season they'd had because, everybody was so gaga over the first 12-team playoff, and Ohio State had just shredded Tennessee. And it was like, you and I were together in Columbus for the Ohio State-Tennessee game. I remember looking at you and just going, uh-oh.
They're going to win the national title, yeah.
Yeah.
Because going into that game, Ohio State could have just flopped after losing to Michigan and just gone down the toilet. You never would have thought twice about it. And if you remember the discourse about the Ohio State-Tennessee game going into it, it was that Tennessee had a real shot to win because
30,000 Vols fans in the stadium. That wasn't an exaggeration. They were there.
Yeah. All the graphics of them driving up the highway and all that. Like, it was cool. Yeah. And then when Ohio State turned into you saw them turn into Death Star mode.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
I just remember watching Nico drop back and going, oh my God, there's literally nothing this dude can do. They're done. They are so cooked. And you just realize, Ohio State's finally figured out how to use all of this talent.
Past the Jeremiah Smith on the first drive, and it was almost like they discovered the Ark of the Covenant. I was like,
discovered fire. Exactly. Prometheus handed them fire.
Yeah, it's like, I've made fire. Like, so I don't know. Like, this is a long way of answering that. Yes, I think Notre Dame could, in theory, be, in a position to have 2 fewer games than another team that wins a national title. But also, too, I think that if they're in a position where they're 12-0 or 11-1, and I wonder if 11-1, if the committee will neg them in any way for not playing that extra game. Because last year the committee showed that playing in your conference championship, everybody who played in a conference championship game
was protected,
got in, right? Did anybody not get in?
The Iowa State.
Iowa State didn't get in, right? But of the 3 major,
everybody else got in.
So
yeah,
if Notre Dame is 11-1 and they're faced up against a team that's 10-2 with the second loss, or an 11-2 with a second loss being in their conference championship game, unless it's a team from the Big 12, I think there's a likelihood that Notre Dame would not get the nod and would be behind them in the final rankings anyway.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see this play out, because also we'll see what Notre Dame's schedule is viewed as by the end of the season. I think a lot of it depends on how good is USC, how good is NC State, how good is Boise State, how good is Miami, how good is Texas A&M. The view of the schedule beyond Miami and Texas A&M at this point is it's fairly weak, but you never know. I mean, like, Syracuse could be really good again. We'll see how that goes, but my guess is that schedule will not be as respected as some of the Big Ten and SEC schedules.
Yeah, I mean, if they're 10-2 against that schedule, they're not sniffing.
They're 10-2 against that schedule. They're maybe struggling to make the playoff.
Right.
So
and then they also, and this is the thing that no one ever talks about because society is soft, but by not playing in a conference championship game, they could be sweating on a Saturday or on a selection Sunday, when otherwise an extra quality win in a moment like that could help them get in.
They'd probably love to be able to just schedule somebody that day.
I wonder if Notre Dame will ever miss the playoff because they're 10-2 and don't have enough quality wins.
That's a good question.
And then they'll wish they played in the conference champ. Like,
theoretically, if you lose to Miami and A&M this year, you may not have the wins, but if you had 10 in a row, I'm guessing you probably still get in.
You look at the positive for Notre Dame, which is they don't have to play in a conference championship game because they're not in a conference. Boo-hoo! But it's like they were never getting into the playoff the way Clemson did last year. They don't have that.
No, they can't back in. They've got to.
They have no automatic golden ticket to get in, like everyone else. They have to be a certain standard, and that's difficult. So anyway.
One more Notre Dame questions from Ben. We don't spend too much time on it, but I found this interesting. And this is all about the
conference.
That's not the question, but Ben is asking about the potential future playoff formats, and he goes, "Quick question on the proposed 4-4-2-2-1-1-1 format. How would the committee evaluate Notre Dame? I get that they could get an at-large berth, but aren't all their games going to be completely meaningless for their opponents? I can see the argument now. Yes, Notre Dame beat Clemson, but Clemson pulled Klubnik at halftime of a tie game to save him for next week's tilt with Boston College, because that's a conference game that actually determines whether Clemson makes the CFP. Yet another reason why the Tony Petitti auto bids thing that nobody really likes outside the Big Ten probably shouldn't pass.
The one thing that we have not seen is a team pass on a competitive opportunity yet.
No,
right.
We have
in the NFL. They bench
actually threatened it. Like, he wasn't going to do it, but he's like, I could see a coach doing it when we talked to him before the ACC game.
Yeah. And I hope that we don't. I also think too that the notion of beating Notre Dame is irrelevant because quality wins matter. Like, they always matter. They always matter. Like, I cannot imagine the second half of that scenario playing out the way that he described it, and I hope for the sake of the health of the sport that it never does. Notre Dame is going to win a lot of games, and they're going to be an incredibly important asset on schedules for a lot of teams, regardless of whether or not it counts as a conference win or loss.
Right.
In my opinion.
I would imagine it will always be that way. I also don't see the auto bid thing happening because everyone else is against it, and the Big
And it
Ten is
sucks.
sort of
And it sucks. Can we say that?
sure. And the Big
Okay.
Ten has said, "Oh, we might consider this other thing if the SEC plays 9 conference games," which the SEC commissioner wants to do. So, if we're being logical about this whole thing, it's probably where it's going. All right. Question from Crawford, who's a Georgia fan. As a Georgia fan, I've always wondered why fellow Bulldogs hate Mike Bobo so much. That's their offensive coordinator, former Georgia quarterback, by the way. He's not an offensive genius, but not a dullard either. Is this common with other fan bases? I'd say in the SEC, it's more common than anywhere else. Although probably like Penn State, they've disliked some offensive coordinators lately. I don't know that Mike
Certainly
Yursich
common
was.
at Ohio State. There's a lot of coordinators.
Yeah, Ohio State, Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, like Florida, Georgia, the mindset's fairly similar at those places.
What happens?
But,
Hating on a coach becomes popular. Like it becomes trendy.
Well, and also you were afraid, not afraid. You felt bad criticizing players before they got paid. I think now it's a little more fair game.
But I think that it catches fire. Like, you know who Ohio State fans hated for a few seasons?
Who's that?
Luke Fickell.
Oh, yeah. You
remember
right.
that? And then they ended up winning a national title, I believe, after or whatever, and it worked out great for him. But, like, there are certain coordinators that wind up in the crosshairs, and I think part of the reason is it's impossible to criticize Kirby Smart because he's Kirby Smart. You had a change at coordinator going into last year. It was his first year last year, right? And
no, 2 years ago.
2 years ago. But then you had a major personnel shift in the offseason last year.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you blame for the lack of personnel necessary to be great on offense?
Right.
And then on top of that,
and Todd Monken was not exactly the ace recruiter. He's not the one who brought Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey into the fold.
Mike Bobo was kind of a retread hire too. Having worked there in the past before, and I think that.
But he was good in the that's the thing. They hated him back then when Aaron Murray was the quarterback and Mark Richt was the head coach. They hated Mike Bobo then, and those offenses were good. Like statistically, objectively speaking,
but he already had a target on his back coming into it.
Yeah.
And then it catches fire. And then last year they didn't have the personnel to maybe run some of the exciting things that Georgia ran in the past.
Yeah.
You lose. I mean, it's like so crazy to me. But like Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers were awesome in the NFL last year. Like, I don't think that we appreciated enough how much they lost when they lost those two.
Exactly. I think you're right. Now, as far as that disliking a coordinator goes, like Georgia's got a history of this. Like, y'all hated Todd Grantham as your DC. And Grantham then went to Florida, and the Florida fans liked him for a little while, and then they didn't like him. He's by the way, the new DC at Oklahoma State. So we'll see how the Cowboys fans feel about him. But like he was a popular punching bag coordinator. And I think it feels like those are more common in the SEC, but you're right. Like Ohio State will turn on a coordinator in a heartbeat.
Ohio State turns on position coaches. They couldn't stand Billy Davis when he was their linebacker coach, and that was because he was like best man in Urban Meyer's wedding, and their linebackers were terrible. So like Billy Davis was like every week, like if somebody was in the wrong place or whatever, their linebackers stink. What happened to Andy? I have an intimate memory of this because I lived it. So, and I'm assuming that's common at other places. They didn't, and I don't know. USC really didn't like Alex Grinch for a while.
God, Alex Grinch might have been the most hated coordinator of the past 10 years.
And Alex Grinch has also been hated by multiple fan bases in a 5-year period.
Did the Ohio State fans not like him?
Yes. They had the worst defense they've ever had under him.
Yeah. So,
and
he's at UCF. Yeah, he's at UCF now. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't even know that USC D 2 years ago was the worst organized defense I've ever seen, I think.
They were terrible. Yeah. And so Matt House at LSU had a bad defense, but he wasn't there long enough to become that hated. But yeah, USC Washington 2 years ago.
That my face was melting off. I was like, they can't. And Washington was a very good team. They score on everybody, but like it was like there's no shot they can stop them. That said, there's always a push and pull between personnel and actual like play calling X's and O's acumen. And I think that like in order to be a great coordinator, you have to be a great recruiter who brings in enough good players to make you look good. It's like, what did people want Mike Bobo to do? Pull out a flea flicker out of his ass and put up, like, they didn't have good receivers or good enough receivers last year to meet the standard. That's great. Like, they were a pretty good offense last year. They weren't terrible. It was far cry from what Iowa's been, but the standard at Georgia is so high, there's no room for not being number one in everything. And they just didn't have that. And is it controversial to say they didn't have good enough players to be number one offense last year?
Correct. It's correct. And they also had a lot of drops at receiver, which feeds into good players as well. But Mike Bobo is not the receivers coach. He works with the quarterbacks. So yeah, it feels like they're still yelling "run the damn ball, Bobo" at him from 2013. And it just, they've never let it go.
They make hats of it now.
They do. Very popular hats, actually.
Yeah, run the damn ball.
I was thinking about getting a run the damn ball hat. It's a fine.
If you're an offensive line dude, you kind of are like obligated to do that. I think
so.
And you're an offensive line dude.
Yeah, because run blocking is more fun than pass blocking. Everyone knows this. It's just science. All right, Sam in Chicago. Listening to the show this offseason, I feel like I've noticed a trend. Lower tier teams, in quotes, Oklahoma State is the one that sticks most in my mind, that used to compete despite low recruiting rankings by finding gyms and developing them have struggled. What are the chances that as recruiting continues to develop, these gyms are being evaluated better and as a result are getting scooped up by higher tier programs? As Ari knows from all his stocks, it's a lot easier to find an edge in a low information environment. I think, okay, and the subject line of Sam's email was something like, is out evaluating over? Is it impossible to out evaluate now? And
Mike Gundy said to us on our show that he doesn't know what he has on his roster. Does that sound like a thoroughly evaluated roster to you?
It does not. It does not. But also, Mike Gundy said this is the first time they spent money in the transfer portal. I think that's a piece of it too. I think you can evaluate, but then there are certain guys you just can't get. But now that everybody has some money because of rev share, I think out evaluating may be back. I think if the sport had continued the way it went from 2021 to this year, where what you could pay the players was entirely dependent on what you could raise privately, teams like that were dead in the water, had no chance, because anytime you even had something close to a gym, they were just getting it stolen from you. But it's like when we were talking to Matt Campbell, and I told Matt Campbell, I'll take you with $12 million over some of these other coaches with $20 million.
What did James Blanchard from Texas Tech post the other day or said? Remember we were talking about that? James Blanchard, the Texas Tech player personnel director, said he's going to scope out other players that are poorly evaluated and not making a lot of money, and then we'll pay them more. You'll outbid the lower tier players that aren't.
Yeah, I don't think evaluation's going to get better. Like, there were already tons of people evaluating recruits. Now there were more people evaluating high school recruits, and now they've shifted the duties, so you have more people evaluating current college players for portal purposes. But I don't think and actually that number is going to go down. The number of people evaluating is going to go down because you can't spend as much money on them because you have to spend more on players now. So that was a place where you would spend money that you weren't allowed to give to the players. And now that you're allowed to give it to the players, that's a place where you're going to cut back. So I actually think the number of evaluators is going to go down. The quality of evaluation is going to go down. And therefore, your Matt Campbells, your Mike Gundys, who are good evaluators, are going to take advantage of that, especially now that they have money to retain the people they've hit on in evaluations.
Well, the thing with evaluation that is never brought up, but is an essential piece to the whole equation, Andy, is that your acumen as an evaluator is judged and found successful or, not successful based on how you're doing in relation to your direct peers. So like Oklahoma State still has to evaluate better than Iowa State and Kansas State. But Oklahoma State,
Well, it
even when
also
they
has to evaluate better than Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Texas, because what it needs to find is that person that they all missed,
but
who could play there.
But those teams are no longer competing in their same conference. So, like, the ability to
still recruiting the same schools.
Yeah. Oklahoma State makes its bread, and Kansas State makes its bread by going to the same high schools that Texas and Oklahoma go to, but finding the guy on the bench that they're not watching and getting him. They don't make their bread
not the guy
by
on the
being
bench,
better at
maybe the guy
evaluating.
that's playing the wrong position because there's a Texas recruit in front of him.
They
the other
don't
position.
make their bread by beating those teams for players that those teams want.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they find the players that those teams miss, that they that could play for them had they been evaluated correctly.
But Oklahoma State has never been judged based on, how good they are in comparison to other national title contenders. They do it based on the conference that they're in and their standard of what they have.
No, but Sam's question is evaluation becoming so sophisticated now that the Oklahoma States and the Iowa States can't compete in terms of, like, the evaluations are better. So those players that they would get that Texas and Oklahoma would miss, those players aren't available to them anymore because Texas and Oklahoma don't miss them anymore.
Here's the secondary question
to
that. They
still miss them.
Here's a secondary question to that. Does the infusion of money into the process, meaning your evaluation is going to determine what you think a player is worth, and the investment from the capital standpoint that you need to get from a third party or from your fan base, sharpen the need to be right? Like, that's the thing too. Like, in the past,
that's a great point. That's a great point, because yes, in the past you'd sign 25 guys. If 8 of the 25 guys you sign, so less than 33% hit rate, if 8 of them become starters for you, you're doing fantastic. That's not the case anymore.
If you want to buy $1,000 worth of stock because you want to gamble, you might not look at the company's financials as closely as if you want to buy $1,000 worth of stock that's going to be money that you count on later in life.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, like, if you're going to spend money in order to continue to get the money, you have to show that that's a good investment. You have to have ROI. And I wonder if people are spending an extra 20% on their evaluations per prospect to ensure that their investments are going to a worthy cause.
Yeah.
Which then makes it harder.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And also, we've talked about this relative to, I keep going back to the safety who was committed to Ohio State, who flipped to North Carolina. You got to rank your high school signees based on how much money you're willing to spend on them. And that's going to require probably a little more granular evaluation than you made when it was, okay, these 25 are the ones we're taking.
And if James Blanchard from Texas Tech finds that the person that you ranked number 11 in your class is worth more than $200,000 and he wants to pay him $400,000, that's his prerogative, which then
and you can't, because then you'd be paying him more than the number 5 guy in your class,
and then it messes up your whole board.
Yep.
But then James Blanchard can't mess up that $400,000. So you better be damn sure that the person that you want to outbid from somebody else is actually worth that investment, or the entire tower comes falling down.
Yeah, it is complicated. Yeah. But I do think the schools like Oklahoma State, the Gundy, and I don't know, we'll see with Gundy, because he was pretty upfront with us when we talked to him a few weeks ago. I don't know that this era is going to be for him, but I do think Matt Campbell is going to be successful in pretty much any era. But I think Matt Campbell's got a lot better chance of succeeding now in revenue share than he did had what was going on stayed that way.
Right.
All right. This one's from John. This is a really interesting question. And John sent this after we talked about it on the show last week, and we'd already recorded the mailbag show. So I'm really glad that we're getting to this one. Not sure where I agree with your Arkansas segment yesterday, which was last week. Pre-Hugh Freeze era at Ole Miss around 10 years ago, if you would have asked what is the better program, Ole Miss or Arkansas, the answer was clearly Arkansas. So this is pre-Hugh Freeze, early Bobby Petrino at Arkansas. I don't see any reason Arkansas can't hire their own Lane Kiffin or Shane Beamer and have every bit the ceiling that those two programs have, which is that they expect to be competing for a playoff spot. Arkansas has been just as good or better program over the course of your lifetimes than Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Vandy, South Carolina, Missouri, and Texas A&M, although Texas A&M clearly has a higher ceiling. John is exactly right. Arkansas has played 3 times in the SEC championship game. South Carolina's only done it once. Missouri's done it once. Now, obviously, Missouri entered the league later. Kentucky's never done it. Mississippi State's done it once. Ole Miss has never done it.
I think more than their coaching staff. They need to go find Darren McFadden again. That would help.
Yeah, Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, and Peyton Hillis on the same team. Same team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like my message was that you're hopeless and just give up.
No, but what I think John's right in a lot of ways. Like Arkansas was this, but I also think there's only so much room for success at that level, and so the fact that Ole Miss is where it is because of Lane Kiffin, and Missouri is where it is because of Eli Drinkwitz, might be blocking Arkansas right now. Like one of those may have to drop before Arkansas can rise.
The question that I take from this is, can everybody in the SEC be very, very good, and then the rest of the country deteriorate as a result of it? Like the thing is, like if Arkansas buys into its program at a more serious level than everybody in the Big 12 and everybody in the ACC, there's obviously going to be a glass ceiling.
Already do that.
There's going to be a glass ceiling of how much you can accomplish in your own conference. But like, I think that what we were talking about more than anything is that like Sam Pittman is being perpetually thrown onto the hot seat for not being Shane Beamer. Right. It's not that they're not accomplishing.
Who, by the way, will get thrown on the hot seat this year if he goes 7-5. Shane Beamer, I'm talking about.
But yeah, I think that like what the real issue here isn't, and I'm happy this question was asked because John is right, but the question isn't, can Arkansas hire somebody that can take them to the next level? The question is whether or not the things that are happening within the program now and the record that they have from their current coach is the reason he's on the hot seat. And the reason he's not on the hot seat is because he isn't a young, buff, excited dude that's going to help them win 10 games in a random year. Now, the thing that's interesting is that like we're really high on South Carolina right now, and they have Lenora Sellers, and a lot of that, you know, I think is happenstance of like where his recruitment went and how they ended up getting him. If South Carolina goes 6-6, they are back into the middle of that blip team in the SEC. Like we're riding a pretty big wave of a good year last year, and like them having a good year this year is not guaranteed. I wrote a column about this literally on Thursday. So, you know, I think that Sam Pittman being on the hot seat is more about who he's not than who he is.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. But I go back to what I was saying. I don't know that a lot of these teams can be good at once. I think it's probably limited. Like the list that John gave us of Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Missouri, Texas A&M, probably only about half of those teams can be good at once. Vandy is good for Vandy right now. Like Mississippi State, I think, is in a bad spot where I don't know that Mississippi State can be really good again until Lane Kiffin's not at Ole Miss anymore.
Andy, 10 of the teams of the 16 in the SEC have a national championship ceiling. That's like, I mean, you have to say it out. Like in the past,
that's the hardest part for the and for the ones that aren't. Yeah,
when we had a Power 5 and the Pac-12 still existed, the tentpole programs were more spread out. So like Oklahoma and Texas are the two Big 12 national championship ceiling programs. In the Pac-12, you remove those from the SEC, and it also allows for more room for a Cinderella season, because in most years of Arkansas is having a dynamic year, like when they had, you know, Ryan Mallett and those guys, and they were like killing it, they didn't have Texas and Oklahoma on that season's schedule that year. Like,
correct.
They didn't have to go through those teams. They've got to go through everybody now, and that makes the prospect of having those Cinderella, which is what makes what South Carolina did so impressive last year.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, Arkansas plays at Memphis and brings in Notre Dame at home in the non-conference.
Yeah. And like, what if Texas was just Vanderbilt? That would have been an old schedule. They would have had to play Tennessee and LSU, but now if you've got to play Texas and LSU in back-to-back weeks.
Well, I don't know. They had the SEC West schedule, so those were pretty narrowly where you had to play Alabama, LSU,
you know what I'm saying. And then of course, even if you get through that by chance in the division era, you didn't have Texas waiting for you on the other side. So, I mean, I think I agree with the question, but what do you do? Like, do you try to go make a gimmicky hire to go get somebody who has passion? And who do you go get? And that's other thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I say this for every program. You go try to find a Kirby Smart, and you're probably not going to. There aren't many of those. But you go try to find a Kirby Smart or a Marcus Freeman or somebody who can be dynamic and lead your program and elevate your program. That's what you try to do. It doesn't mean you can.
Hey, can we do a tinfoil hat Friday here real quick too?
Yeah.
I think I have this theory. And I always go off the rails with this shit, so I'm sorry. But I have this theory that because agents are involved, because NIL is so prevalent, and because we're so concerned with the personnel in a way that, we've always been concerned with personnel, but we're obsessed with it now in a way that we haven't before.
Right.
In terms of what they're making and what their earning powers are and all that. That the thing that has taken a back seat, and it's funny that I'm going to say this on the same episode that we talked about Mike Bobo, is that coordinators and up-and-coming coaches are lower down on the totem pole of attention. And I think it's harder for us, me and you and general fans across the country, to pinpoint the star up-and-coming coaches that used to be all over the place. I think that there's a reason why it's harder to find, like when Nick Saban and was retiring, to find a board of 10 people that could take that job. And maybe that's a bad example because Alabama's its own animal.
It's such a hard job, yeah.
If Arkansas were to fire Sam Pittman today, your hot board would not be filled with names.
Well, it would start with Rhett Lashley because that's home for him. But then you would say, is SMU a better job than Arkansas at this point? Because they'll pay you a bunch of money and you could actually win your league.
I think between NIL agents, head coaching salaries, buyouts, and NIL deals, it's harder to pay attention to the other part of the sport, which is people who have been working in positions who have done a good job at places aren't as big of stars as they used to be. So nothing feels like a home run anymore. And I do think too that there have been a lot of coaches, when Lane Kiffin got hired at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's name reverberated. He could recruit to that. That was a move. That felt the fickle to Wisconsin-ish type hires just aren't there anymore.
We'll see. I wrote a story on coordinators who could be head coaches this time next year. At On3, so you can read that now.
And how many of the names on that list, Andy, are big time moves in fans' minds?
That's the question. What do you think if Buster Faulkner got hired as your team's head coach?
I don't think 95% of people who listen to
know who that is.
Tell you who that is. Yeah.
Okay. Or Will Stein or Andy Kotelnicki or Mike Shanahan.
Who's the most recognizable name on that list? Kotelnicki?
Colin Klein, because he was a Heisman Trophy finalist.
Kotelnicki, because he's reviving an offense that has a potential first-round draft pick at a quarterback? Yeah. I don't know.
Glenn Schumann, because he's Georgia's DC. Will Stein, because he's Oregon's OC. So Kotelnicki, probably.
You think a USC fan knows who Glenn Schumann is?
Probably not.
And if Glenn Schumann got hired at Arkansas, that would be a great move. I would love that for them. Would they be excited about it? I don't know. I'm just thinking
producer River sad. I got Tim Banks on that list. I got Tennessee's DC on that list.
Hate to see it.
That dude does a good job. But yeah, and then I've got a list of group of 5 coaches. That's going to come out next week. And yeah, it's not necessarily like before, like when Urban Meyer was the coach at Utah, which was a group of 5 or group of what, I don't even know how many conferences were in the group at that point, but it was a Mountain West school. Everybody knew that Urban Meyer was the guy next, even before the Florida and Notre Dame jobs opened and they started fighting over him.
Yeah. The who's next category is a much shallower bucket. That doesn't mean they don't exist. It means that the fanfare that comes with the hire isn't there, and then the boon and the wave of talent accumulation momentum is gone, which makes it harder to build a program like Arkansas, right?
I
don't think like Lane Kiffin is like falling out of the sky, you know?
Well, and Lane Kiffin is one of those people who just moves the needle in a way that we don't always understand why. Like anything Lane Kiffin does moves the needle, and that's kind of unusual.
But you know what? One converse thought to me, to what I said. I think Fran Brown could have been on your lists, and nobody would have known who Fran Brown was. And
100%.
Everybody knew who Fran Brown was because Fran Brown is Fran Brown. You know,
and I'm telling you right now, Fran Brown against this gnarly ass schedule that Syracuse has to play this year, if he wins 7 or more games, if I'm an AD, he's at the top of my list.
If Fran Brown got hired by Arkansas, you'd be like, oh shit.
I would definitely be. I would say that if Fran Brown got hired by Maryland, got hired by Auburn, like,
oh, Maryland would be good.
Yeah, all of those, I'd be like, oh shit, yeah, because look at what he did in year one at Syracuse. But yeah, that's actually, while we're on this subject, let's go down to Patrick's question, because we asked Virginia Tech fans to write in and let us know how they felt. Patrick was one of those loyal Hokies who did. So I thought your assessment where Hokie fans stand was spot on. We know we're unlikely to return to near annual BCS level now playoff appearances, but 8-4, 9-3 seasons with occasional playoff contention is still realistic and should be the expectation. Brent Pry had hired 2 first-time coordinators, and Whit Babcock, the AD, let it happen. Pry's refusal to release injury reports doesn't protect the team. It just fuels speculation and fan frustration. On the field, we've seen head scratchers calling timeout before a blocked 58-yard field goal, only to let Liberty gain 5 yards and kick the winner. That was a terrible one. Multiple losses to Old Dominion, duplicate jersey numbers on special teams. I hear the Florida fans nodding in agreement, and consistently losing one-score games due to poor adjustments. We haven't beaten a Power 5 non-conference opponent since West Virginia in 2017. Simply put, you're going to love this, Ari.
I do.
We're tired of the grab ass and believe the current state of the program is unacceptable. Apathy set in under Justin Fuente, and the vibes haven't improved much under Pry.
Yeah. I think that like 80% of college football has those expectations. 8-3, 9-3, 8-4 with occasional contention for high.
I actually think that's realistic at Virginia Tech.
I think that's realistic for just about I think that could be realistic for Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the most rational like expectation of your team. And I think that we're also like so clouded by the irrational expectations and results that we've gotten from the team, the country's best, that we've lost sight that that's probably 90% of the teams. And my biggest issue with college football today, and I whittled my way, or weaseled, I think was the word I was looking for, my way into becoming a national reporter by being fixated on recruiting. And by being fixated on recruiting, it was so fascinating, or it used to be, of like, and I think this might kind of preview a show that we're going to work on in the future, which is looking at team identities.
Yeah.
But like you used to be able to map out, if Virginia Tech hires a coach, he has to do A, B, C, and D to be successful. These are the areas he needs to recruit. Here's how he needs to make it cool.
These regions he needs to own.
I mean, like if you go look at like what Jed Fish did at Arizona, he brought Rob Gronkowski back. They got hammered at the spring game. You know, he recruited certain areas harder than they had before. Like Bijan Robinson was a player that they didn't even bother recruiting before.
Who's from Tucson, yeah.
And he lived 2.3 miles away from the stadium, and you know, like they fixed the things that were right in front of their faces, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's places like Virginia Tech. It's like we talked about this when we talked about them the first time. If it's not Brent Pry, the next coach who comes, does everybody have the same plan? Try to over-evaluate and be better in the portal and hope for the best? Like nobody, like building a program isn't a renovation of a home anymore. It's knocking it down and rebuilding it really fast. And everybody rebuilds it with the same materials. And I think that that's like harder to me than like trying to grab a program and like latch onto the things that it's prideful of, weaponize those things that it's prideful of, try to gain steam in your backyard, try to get players that are going to stay in your program for 2 or 3 years, and by year 3 or 4 be awesome. Like, the expectation at Virginia Tech now is fire the coach, flip the roster, and go try to win the ACC by year 2. And if not, you're freaking fired. Like, and I think that's like a very hard thing to navigate, and not just Virginia Tech. That's everywhere.
It's hard, and it's hard for fans. It's hard on fans. Like that. That's unfair
no moral
to them.
fabric anymore. I don't know if that's the word. There's no fabric anymore. There's no clear and identifiable plan to follow, and there's no possible way
unless Billy Napier works at Florida, because that's what he's tried to do.
Yeah. I mean,
but it also might get him fired.
What's the thing that's going to fix them this year if they did really well in the portal?
Florida?
They had to add more talent to their team when they were inactive last year. They have a true freshman from the high school ranks. Their quarterbacks from the high school ranks. I see what you're saying. Yeah. But like, what did
and score all their best linemen.
I'm ignorant to Florida in this regard.
Yeah.
But did Billy Napier connect with the pride of Gator lore in a way that previous coaching regimes didn't, in order to make them like sympathetic?
His thing was he tried to go after recruits that Alabama and Georgia also wanted.
Yeah.
And got some of them.
And that's important.
And that was not going on before. And that was a big deal.
But like also too, and I have to look this up, but Florida did really well in the state of Florida as well, right?
Correct.
They got a bunch
much
of blue
better
in the
state.
Florida.
Yeah.
So
much better in the
I
state.
guess Florida is a good example of that.
But yeah, also, he's the one who's doing it the old school way. And again, it may work or he may get fired.
But I also
we don't know.
Florida's a terrible example because Florida is already a program that's won national championships in the recent past and has a logo that people know. I'm talking about the middle tier teams. Yeah. Florida has had middle tier results. It's never been a middle tier program. I'm talking like if you throw up some logos from the ACC in here, I'm like, what? Like,
well, you're talking Virginia Tech, Virginia. You're talking about NC State. So that level,
Georgia Tech, Cal.
But look, what Brent Key's doing at Georgia Tech,
to a certain extent, they had to go find.
Yep, Brent Key's showing you it can work at Georgia Tech. I think Jeff Brom is going to work at Louisville.
And what are they all doing?
They're getting Brent Key started out recruiting the best players in Georgia.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is the plan at Virginia Tech any different than Georgia Tech? Is the plan at Virginia Tech any different than it is at Syracuse? Is it different than it? Because all these jobs used to be like we used to rank jobs.
Yeah, it's different. It's different at Syracuse because Fran Brown has a different plan than clearly Brent Pry had. Now, the question is, do you get? Yeah, we do need to. Do you get somebody who has Fran Brown's plan if you fire Brent Pry? Is that?
But I don't even know. As somebody who talks about college football every day with you and spends my entire life thinking and writing and consuming it, if I could tell you in a concise and clear manner right now the difference between what Fran Brown's doing and what Virginia Tech would attempt to do, Fran Brown.
I don't think there's a difference. I think you would hire someone who you would hope would be able to flip the roster like Fran Brown did. Fran Brown tapped into all his recruiting connections in New Jersey to get players who might come to Syracuse and join him. And that's what he did, and it worked.
Yeah, maybe the separation of geographical importance and fiber of your program just don't mean what it did in 2017. Which
it's not so much like you got to have this person who can recruit this area.
Colorado goes out and gets Deion Sanders. It's like, does anybody have any thought whatsoever on how many high school good players there are in the state of Colorado? Like, it doesn't. There's no, and that's again an extreme example, I know, but like. We used to rank jobs based on, we ranked jobs. We did it this offseason. Like the number one thing on that list was where are they located? That. And I don't know if you have to be. Do you have to be successful in your own backyard from a high school recruiting standpoint to be good anymore? I don't know. The answer to that question is yes, which is an insane shift in the paradigm of how we even break down jobs and what coaches should do when they take those jobs. Which is a good preview for what we're going to talk about at some point, hopefully next week.
That's right. We're going to talk about sometime in the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about program identities, the ones that know what their identity is, and the ones that need to figure it out, and maybe what those identities should be. So, if you have suggestions for your own program and what you think their identity should be, hit us up AndyStaplesOn3 at gmail.com, Ari.Wasserman at on3.com. And let us know, like, hey, I'm a fan of Virginia Tech. Here's what we should be. I'm a fan of Maryland. Here's what we should be. I'm a Tennessee fan. Here's what we should be. I'd love to know.
I would love to know what you think the plan should be, too. What's the plan? We talked about plans on Thursday's show. Let's talk about plans again. Like, what is the blueprint? I think the Florida blueprint's pretty straightforward, Andy.
It's the one that used to work, and the jury's out on whether it works now. And this year will be. It'll tell us a lot. All right. Last question. Steve in San Antonio. Gentlemen, not a question. Just wanted to say I was horrified by your lack of shower discipline for your lower body, legs, calves, etc. It's troubling. Cheers, Steve in San Antonio.
Do you soak your calves in the shower, Steve in San Antonio? Like, do you bend over and like...
Play the clip, River.
Staph infection. So we did a clinic yesterday on proper shower technique and soap. And using a rag, we put some new rags in. Y'all think I'm kidding? All right, I'm serious. Yeah, I told them, we had the worst shower discipline of any team I've ever been around. And so we talked a little bit about, application of soap to the rag and making sure you hit all your body. You can neglect it trying to cut corners, and it shows in how you practice and elsewhere. So I'm hoping we show some improvement in that.
That is former Tennessee coach Derek Dooley, who once put 13 men on the field and lost to LSU. He wants to be the junior senator from Georgia. Yeah, Ari, look, my legs are fine. The water running down my legs, the soap running down my legs, it's fine.
Is a man supposed to bend over in the shower with a loofah and scrub their shins and calves?
I will say, when I have been doing yard work and have dirt all over my shins and calves, I do reach down, soap everything up, make sure I get all the dirt off. But not in a normal shower. I'm just letting that soap run down.
Getting dirt off. 99.9% of the time you take a shower, you don't have dirt on you.
Yeah.
In a normal shower, do you bend over and scrub your feet and calves?
No, trickle down economics, baby.
Yeah.
Let the soap trickle down.
Yeah. And good for you if you do. I do get my arms because my arms are closer and it doesn't involve any, bending over.
Effort.
I mean, you could get one of those cool loofahs that has like a, have you seen those loofahs that are on the edge of a stick and you can kind of just scrub without bending over?
Oh, yeah. Reminds me of The Simpsons. I wash myself with a rag on a stick. Yeah.
Somebody got mad at me because I flexed on my old bathroom. Do you remember the old house? The bathroom was sick. But the one thing that my shower does have, and a lot of people have this, I don't know if you do, is I have a, what is it called?
Faucet?
I have a faucet.
Shower head
that hits your face. But on the side of the walls, I have little holes that shoot water at you. So
jets.
It's kind of like, I've got jets.
You fancy. Yeah, you fancy.
So like I have water hitting me in all different directions when I'm showering. And we have a little wand that you can use to spray more.
Your nether regions, yes, if you need to.
And that feels very good when combined with tea tree on certain areas of the body.
So there you have it, Steve in San Antonio. You need a bougie shower like Ari's, and then you don't have to reach down and soap up your
It's not that you don't have to be that bougie. They do sell like attachments that go onto the main faucet that go down towards you where you can have it shooting at you. It's not like you need to have it in, there's attachments. If it's not that expensive, you can do it if it's important to you. Also, too, you live in Florida, so you must be very familiar with swamp ass. Do you guys have that? Yeah. There's nothing better than when you have that ailment to having warm or cold, depending on the mood that you're in, water spraying aggressively on the crevices that are impacted by the swamp ass. No?
Oh, no, I agree completely. I just have nothing more to say. This is how we send people into the weekend, Ari.
If you have swamp ass and the only mode of water getting into the crevices that are affected by this is coming from the faucet at the top, then it has to travel down your entire length of your body to get to that area. And I don't feel like you need to use recycled water on an area that's in, because there's nothing that needs to be addressed more in a shower, period, than correcting swamp ass, right? Like that's the number one priority in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I do when I get into the shower in the summer when I have that ailment is spray my ass. That's the first thing, even before my head and my body. Have a good weekend. I don't know what to tell you.
May the water run down all of your cracks and crevices, and may the tea tree shampoo hit you in all the right places and tingle in all the right places. We'll talk to you on Monday.